Welcome everyone to tonight's Wrestling Memories. I'm your host tonight. Tonight's episode 31. The War Gets Electrified with The Rock. And I'm your host tonight. My name is Trekapedia, aka Brendan. With me tonight, as always, first off we have JP. How's it going, JP?
Doing good. You're fucking late.
Traffic sucks.
I don't give that's an excuse. I'm just kidding. I'm doing all right, man. I've had a long couple of days. I'm on vacation and I'm doing more work
than at work.
But I'm doing all right.
Cool.
Back's feeling a little better.
Cool. Glad it's feeling better, my friend.
Shut the fuck up. Move on. I'm just kidding.
Next to him, as always, is the lovely Heather. How are you tonight, Miss Tattoo Mistress?
Stop hitting on my girlfriend, you fucking asshole.
Doing all right. Got to see little fingers today, so we're doing good.
Aww.
Yeah, she did. I didn't get to see pictures of
because
you
never come into the office with me.
Well, I didn't know if I could. I thought they were just gonna do. Well, shit. Well, fuck.
You're the father. Why wouldn't I want you in there?
All you gotta do is say, "Hey, do you want to come with me?" And I would have been like, "Okay." I mean, I was having fun watching the fucking show The Talk. Now, never fucking make me fucking sit in a fucking lobby watching that fucking garbage again. Fucking liberal cunt bags. Anyway,
so
go ahead.
Know tomorrow you come in with me.
Fuck yeah, I'm going into the fucking office with you. Go ahead. Moving on. But she's
along with me as always is Johnny Ray Sinister. How are you, Mr. Sinister?
Do you know how long you made me wait, you bastard?
How many fingers do I have up?
I don't know. I can't see right now.
You got Bijou with you there, huh?
No. That's not Bijou.
No. I fucking took her, threw her in the fucking ditch, and used her for fucking gator food, and then went and got a different dog. Yes, Bijou is with me.
Salty.
I am gonna be salty when I made the wait for fucking 45 minutes.
And also with us is Bobbitt. How you doing, Bobbitt?
Oh, you just leave me in the fucking dark here. Okay, bastard. Motherfucker.
Sit the fuck down and moderate the show.
Yeah, you late ass.
I'm just kidding.
Okay, so tonight's episode is about The Rock. It's The War Gets Electrified. When we begin... Huh?
Just keep going.
When we begin tonight, the WCW is firmly in the driver's seat when 96 and 97 rolled around. WWE at this point has had a couple of different Samoan stars. They've had High Chief Peter Maivia, they've had Rocky Johnson, they've had the Wild Samoans, and they've also had Yokozuna and second generation Samoans like Rikishi, who was known as Fatu in that time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's his last name, so.
Mm-hmm. And at Survivor Series 97, or 96, excuse me, 96. Rock premiered as Rocky Maivia, but he didn't want to premiere as Rocky Maivia. He wanted to premiere as Dwayne Johnson, and he certainly made an impact that first night. Do you guys remember watching that first night, or have you ever seen the match with him in it when he debuted?
No.
It was.
Not gonna lie.
It was a very interesting evening because he was not very well received at first.
Yeah.
I don't actually remember watching the match, but I do remember, I did watch his reaction to seeing his first match.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was not really received well.
No, he. Well, how long before they started doing the Rocky Die chants?
It was sometime after he was Intercontinental Champion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's around WrestleMania, I think, too, because I remember WrestleMania 13, there were a lot of those chants.
Okay. Wasn't he part of the fucking... At that time, wasn't he part of Nation of Domination then?
No, that was before Nation of Domination. He was Intercontinental Champ before he became part of Nation of Domination.
Okay.
Yeah, that was an instance where they purely pushed him on his talent. to get him a championship.
Kind of reminds me of somebody fucking else.
Uh-huh.
But go ahead. I digress.
How about you, Bob? Do you remember, have you seen that match? Do you remember the promos leading up to it? Do you remember his fanfare when he came in?
No, not really, because I was watching WCW at the time.
Yeah, I
Someone
mean,
else
that was the
premiered-
consensus at the time. I mean, a lot of people were still watching WCW because of the NWO.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about that outfit real quick, though. How god-awful was that?
Oh my god.
It's like, dude, are you Aztec or what?
So, I think, didn't I make mention of that the other fucking night?
Yeah.
His outfit, and it has to do with Roman Reigns, and I said, look at what The Rock was wearing. If the outfit he was wearing is kind of reminiscent of what he was wearing, they kind of stereotyped him in a way. And Samoans don't normally dress like that. They dress like you and me.
Right. Unless they're actually within a tribal celebration, which is completely different.
They were trying to make Rocky that over-the-top gimmick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember the episode said they were trying to make him the next big Hulk Hogan, like the white meat babyface, but the crowd really didn't want that.
Right. Well, it's not that they didn't want it. They didn't like the character because of the over-the-top stereotyping, and it got stale, boring, and his promo ability fucking sucked at that time. Until which we'll later get into, but it was just one of those things. And you look at Roman Reigns today, he looks like a fucking SWAT team member. Why? Nobody fucking cares. Nobody cares that he can fucking enter a fucking room stealthily. Because that's what a SWAT team does.
And boy, Vince McMahon contradicted the shit out of himself in this episode.
Well, he does that
Yeah,
with
he
another
did.
episode.
He's like, oh, well, the fans weren't doing it. We perceived them to want. So we wound up having to change it, go in a different direction. Well, what the fuck are you doing now?
I agree. Someone else who premiered that night was Triple H. He premiered that night at Survivor Series 96 too.
Okay. Is this an episode about Triple H or The Rock?
Well, I mean, we're getting to that because they had one of the greatest rivalries in the history of WWE too.
Yeah, later. It was after. Didn't their rivalry happen after the Attitude Era?
Yeah, a little bit coming up. It'll come up here in just a few moments. But I just wanted to throw that in there to say they both premiered that night. They both kind of had similar career paths. So.
Well, Triple H was a little better received though, because he premiered as a heel.
Yeah.
The overly rich, arrogant character that he pulls off so well.
But his character got really stale real quick because it was an over-the-top fucking gimmick.
Yep.
Stone Cold Steve Austin's gimmick, his first gimmick in WWE, the Ringmaster,
Yep.
was an over-the-top gimmick.
Triple H's first gimmick. My shit don't stink.
Exactly.
I come into this ring with caviar and with a butler named Duke.
He was introduced as Vince's neighbor, I believe, too.
Yes, because it was built from Connecticut.
Yep, he was built. I don't think he was built from Stanford though.
Mm-hmm.
Not Stanford, no, but Connecticut, just in general.
Okay.
Greenwich.
Yep, there you go.
I don't know if it was. I mean, like, it was stale from the moment he got out there. But I saw the promos, and you could see that he had the talent. It's just that they brought him in the wrong way. I mean, they really didn't want that character. They wanted more like Stone Cold Steve Austin and the NWO. They wanted anti-heroes. They didn't want the traditional babyface like Hogan had been back in the '80s.
Okay. What's the question?
Oh, go ahead, JP.
I was just gonna say, what's the question?
The question is, how would you guys have brought him in? Would you brought him in like blurring the lines? I mean, would you have like brought him in as closer to an anti-hero, or do you think that it was good how they brought him in, and then they changed it up later. Because I think that it worked that they changed it up later.
I don't know. Somebody, go ahead, Johnny. I didn't pay attention to The Rock when he first came in. I don't know too much about The Rock when he first came in.
I didn't really either, but I will say this. I think it... Would we always do something different with the debut to make it more memorable? The answer is yes. You would always do something a little bit different. But in hindsight, I think it needed to happen because, realistically, this is what got Vince and the WWE to kind of open their eyes and see, this ain't fucking working.
Right.
And which kind of caught it. And they said a line in the show that was very telling, that the fans kind of started the Attitude Era before the Attitude Era was a thing.
Exactly. That whole Die Rocky Die thing, and being aggressive in their stance of, no, this is not what we want, this is what we want.
Right. And so that's why I say the correlation is very, very funny to me, because they listened to the fans that time.
Mm-hmm.
And they just absolutely refuse to listen to the fans now. And so what you had there was, Die Rocky Die chance. I mean, he was... It's bad to make a comparison because Reigns came later, but, the way... For people that may not have known The Rock back then or didn't watch the Attitude Era, at one point, Rock was getting Reigns levels of heat.
Yes.
Yes. And
Absolutely.
It wasn't good heat. I mean, I will...
As a show we constantly have been quoting recently, in 83 Weeks, Eric Bischoff, one of his favorite sayings within that show is always, hindsight is always 20/20. So with this being hindsight, yes, of course, you absolutely would bring in The Rock as The Rock.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If anything, I would agree. Again, like she said, that's what I would say. I would say, looking at hindsight 20/20, bring him in as The Rock. Because he was essentially the anti-hero, but they done fucked his character up so fucking bad that they had to turn him heel before they could do anything. So that they could build him to be the anti-hero that essentially he was. Because look, you got to look at all the characters during the Attitude Era. Look at Mankind.
Mm-hmm.
Look at Stone Cold Steve Austin. Look at The Rock. You're eating on camera again. That is so fucking annoying. Look at Stone Cold Steve Austin. Look at The Rock. Look at fucking Mankind. The Undertaker.
Yes.
They were all heels at one time.
Mm-hmm.
Can somebody honestly tell me when Stone Cold Steve Austin turned face?
It's never been clearly decided on when he turned face, because you could never really tell.
Did he ever really turn face? Was he always a heel?
He was, but they said the double turn with him and Brett was at WrestleMania 13, but even before then, the fans were cheering him because they wanted something different.
Well, actually, somebody was talking about this last night, about this very subject, about Stone Cold. Realistically, he never turned face. What made him the face is they just put a bigger heel in his path.
Right.
Exactly. And something WWE should do with both Becky Lynch and Roman Reigns. Put a bigger heel. And I'm not talking about Braun Strowman. He's a face. You can't.
You really can't. And just real quick, to answer your question there, Lion, I did see it. No, I did not have a crush on The Rock. I actually had a crush on Goldberg and The Undertaker. So.
When Goldberg was legit.
Yes.
I just thought I'd pose that question myself because people are always saying, well, Stone Cold Steve Austin turned face. When? When did Stone Cold Steve Austin turn face? He never really did. The Rock actually turned heel, but when did he turn face? It's kind of along the same lines. Yes, he got bigger pops when he started getting into a feud with Vince McMahon.
Yes.
But he was still not a total face. You've seen what he did with faces and heels. He treated them both the same.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't matter what you think. And that's, he talked to everybody like that. So it wasn't... And Stone Cold was the same way. The way that they built their characters in the Attitude Era is the way that they need to build their characters now. And like I said, if we're sitting here, we're comparing to today to back then. But if you want character development, you look at New Japan Pro Wrestling. You can't tell. I mean, Kenny Omega is essentially a face, but he's come out and said at the last pay-per-view, you know, the G1 Climax, he goes, this has been a good tournament, and I'm a heel. So, the way that they build characters is the way, or the way that they were building characters back then is the way that they should be building characters now.
Right.
Moving on.
Bobbitt, how about you? How would you have changed his character when he debuted?
Me?
No, Bobbitt.
Bobbitt.
I don't know. I'm like JP here. I really didn't pay much attention when he first came out.
No, he was a baby.
No, I agree. I was thinking about that at work today, and I was like, I don't know how I would have changed it. Maybe Bray as The Rock, but it seemed like even he had to become a heel to become a better face. Like Stone Cold says, you have to be a good heel to be a good face.
But again, Trek, did either one of them two become a face?
No, because the crowd turned Stone Cold face, and the crowd turned The Rock heel. So the crowd
did the crowd really turn The Rock face? See, you're speaking semantics here. When you say just because you're getting a cheer, did Stone Cold walk around giving high fives to the fans as he walked by him? No. Then he wasn't a fucking face. Stop saying that.
It's the same thing with Becky Lynch right now.
Look at Becky Lynch. Look at what she's doing. She's doing the exact same thing that The Rock or Stone Cold does. I mean, yes, you will see The Rock giving high fives to fans because he's
that guy.
He's The Rock. He's portraying a movie star essentially in the WWE.
Oh no, I agree. I just mean that the crowd told WWE what they wanted to see.
I'm gonna tell everybody this, and I'm a fan of WWE. Fuck the fans. They're ruining some of the characters that are being portrayed today. We talked about this on Tuesday with Becky Lynch. Anybody that wants to sit here and tell me, and I know we're going off topic here, it's supposed to be about The Rock. In fact, you know what? I'm going to hold off. To the end of the show, I'll tell you exactly what I think again. I may have to have Heather remind me of what I said. But...
Or you can hold it off to the Rage and Ink, which is coming on right after.
Oh, shit. Yeah, fuck it. We'll talk about it on fucking Heather's show. Let's stay on task with The Rock.
Okay. But yeah, he was brought in, and he was just this white meat baby face, smacking hands with the fans, kissing babies and everything like that. And he comes down and he's getting booed the shit out of him. But to be honest, the place he premiered in was New York, and New York has not always been a safe haven for baby faces. Look how they treated Shawn Michaels back in the day. They booed the shit out of him.
Of course they did, because they were sick and tired of him being a baby face. They wanted the anti-hero.
Yep. And welcome to the chat, Wrestling with Broid, or...
Brody?
So yeah, that night he premiered, he was... Oh, go ahead.
I've always had a show.
What the hell are you eating, Trek?
Fries.
Stop!
But yeah, he premiered that night, and he was actually the sole survivor of the match, so he got a big... I'm like, that is getting a big push. I mean... Would you have had him win his first match? I think that's the only way they could have re-premiered it after all those promos when he's like, I love my family life, and this is what my dad did, my grandfather did. I think they were back to their corner. They had to have him win his first match. You
have to understand the original premise behind the reason why they debuted him the way they debuted him. Yep. We're missing a lot of context here. The reason why it happened is because at this time, Rock, Dwayne Johnson, was the first third-generation wrestler to come into the business. Exactly. So the reason for the gimmick as him being Rocky Maivia was because Vince wanted him to honor his grandfather and his father. And that's how Rocky Johnson. So that's how Rocky Maivia came up. Was basically a mix mash of his father's first name and his granddad's last name. And so the premise behind it was this was rich heritage, kind of what they did with Randy Orton. In fact, I think they did Randy Orton's kind of lineage deal a little bit better than The Rock. But
that's also because Cowboy Bob Orton was there with him at times too.
Exactly. And so that was the original premise behind The Rock when he first debuted. And the thing is just it was during that time where ratings were bad and people didn't want that kind of stuff.
They were getting pissed off with it because it's the same old shit repeated every day.
Lather, rinse, repeat, pretty much, yeah.
And again, when you go back to this is the time, and again, I always tell people you can't just look at what's going on inside of the wrestling business. You have to go over at what's going on in media as a whole and what's going on in culture as a whole, because culture often dictates what happens in the wrestling ring.
A lot of times, yes.
That is true.
And the promotion. So at that time, you had a lot of very prudish, very highly religious people dictating what people trying to dictate what people saw and see, and what was deemed acceptable television viewing. And so the thing is that people didn't want to see that. It was boring. This was during the era of when video games caused violence. I don't know why the fuck that's coming back, but anyway.
It's never going away.
But needless to say, violence was a bad thing, and you had to protect your kid. You couldn't show kids anything evil because that was something that was detrimental to their development. And so, but people didn't want to see that. They wanted the nitty gritty. They wanted the edgy content.
Right.
And so what was going on with the society, that's when WWE kind of started bucking the trend, because how can we get people to tune in? Well, nothing's better to get people to tune into a show than edgy content.
Right.
The term sex sells is a very, people shit on that statement, but a lot of people don't realize how true that statement really is.
I was just thinking that too.
Yep. Couldn't agree more.
But yeah, go ahead, JP.
I'm just saying I couldn't agree more.
Let's go.
But yeah, we get into the thing. He's won the Intercontinental Championship. He's getting a big push. All we hear is Rocky sucks, and die, Rocky die. And I admit, when I was younger and I was first watching, I'm like, why do people hate this guy? I'm like, he's actually really good in the ring. And it's like, nowadays I look back, I'm like, they were pushing him down our throats. They were giving us stuff that we didn't want. Then you look at Stone Cold, it's like, that's what we wanted, that's what we needed. We needed the anti-hero. We needed something different.
Okay, so here's the thing. When you're sitting there, now say what you said again with Rocky. Start from the beginning and say it slower.
He was getting a big push. He won the Intercontinental Championship. I think he won it from Triple H, I want to say.
Okay.
It was either Triple H or Goldust. It was one of those two. He won it, and he was off to the races. He got a massive push.
Right.
And then they all started. When I was younger, I saw that push and stuff around WrestleMania 13 when he was fighting the Sultan, who was really Rikishi.
Right.
And all these people, all I heard was die, Rocky dying, Rocky sucks, and I didn't get it because I was younger. I'm like,
okay, that's right. I'm gonna stop you right there. But you kind of answered your own question, or kind of answered the question already. That's the way I feel about it. Here's the thing. Again, It wasn't about the culture started changing within the WWE. They were more about storylines than they were about what happened inside the ring. In fact, WWE has always been what story are they telling? What promo are they cutting this week? So they didn't care about the in-ring ability. I mean, I'll admit it. I wanted to know what the storyline was. I didn't give a shit about the fucking in-ring ability. I'll even go this far. I'm gonna do it again. The wrestlers today, their in-ring ability is really good. But can they tell a fucking story outside of the fucking ring? No. That's where the failure is coming in. And with The Rock, he could not. His in-ring ability was great, but what was the story they were telling with The Rock at that time?
That he was the young blue chipper and about his family prestige.
So they were going to shove him down the fucking throats of everybody, and that was going to be the storyline that they're telling. Now they're doing the same thing with a certain individual that is related to him today. This is true.
No, I agree.
Okay. I'm sorry.
I agree. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I was done.
I agree with that. It was just when I was younger, I didn't get it, but now looking back, I could see why. But back then, I was like, I was more enhanced with the wrestling because I liked the storylines, but I liked the wrestling more because that's what my dad and I used to watch. Was like the wrestling. We didn't really pay attention to too many storylines unless it was a big thing like Hogan or Savage or something like that, like a WrestleMania or something like that. But I like the wrestling more, so I was like, this guy's really good. I don't get why they're booing him. Now looking back, I see he's getting shoved down our throats. I see why they coughed it back up, to use a phrase. They coughed it back up, they gave it back, because they were fed the fuck up with it. I mean, they didn't want that. They wanted something. You turn the channel and you see the NWO. Which one do you think you gotta want more? You gotta want those anti-heroes running roughshod.
Right? You're correct.
And I think it was just, I mean, like, it's funny because the night before WrestleMania, they had the Slammy Awards that year, and he won the star, I think it was like the breakout star or the star of a new generation, and they were kind of booing him there too.
Okay.
And they're just like, it's, for me, like I said, when I was younger, I'm like, he's the breakout star and they're booing him, I don't get it. Nowadays, looking back, I'm like, we see that with a certain other person. And it's like, good Lord, enough's enough. Turn the guy or do something else with him or just let him go. It's like, but now I could see it. But back when I was younger, I'm like, I didn't get it. But I definitely do see it now. But it's a shame because he's always been a very good wrestler.
I hate to interrupt, but you just made the same point 3 fucking times.
Shit. Moving on.
Moving on.
How you doing, Sarah and Steve?
What's next, Trek?
Next he actually had an injury and he didn't even get why that they were booing him too, just like we were talking about. And it started shifting to the Attitude Era where they started really pushing the envelope like Johnny was saying. And it was a blessing that he got hurt. I can't remember why he got hurt. Was it like his knee or something like that? Does anybody remember how he got hurt?
Nope.
No, they didn't mention anything about him getting hurt.
Yeah.
They did not mention anything about getting hurt. This is what happened. Basically, the fan, he started getting, his real self started getting emotional about it. And he did not understand why the people were booing him. And around this time is when the Attitude Era really started to pick off. And Vince McMahon went to everybody and basically said, we're going in a new direction. And we're going to start allowing more real-to-life personas. And so this opened the door for The Rock to be pushed into with Ron Simmons and the Nation of Domination. At the time, Ron Simmons was known as Farouk. And basically, he went heel, joined the Nation of Domination, and he cut a promo, basically going, getting mad at the fans. That was a legitimate shoot promo because they were actually his real feelings towards it. It just was said in a promo form. And thus, what you had happen was they started down this trek of turning him heel. And the longer it went, he started getting more confidence. And that's what they wanted in the beginning, is that they wanted him to have the confidence to stand in front of people and really talk.
Right.
And the thing is, the guy coming in had a bunch of charisma.
Yes, he did.
And it was just tapping into it that he really needed. The Nation of Domination was the platform for him to do so.
Now, okay, so I was kind of watching WCW at the time. Didn't they do an injury, like, to repackage him? Like, they took him off of TV for like a month or two to repackage him and then bring it back into the Nation of Domination. I think that's what Trek is asking. See, I don't know. I wasn't too intent on The Rock. I was more into the Stone Cold Steve Austin storyline at the time. And Bret Hart. Mm-hmm. So, I think that's where he was going with it. But I agree with you that's what they did with him on the Rock side of things, is they brought him in, put him in the Nation of Domination, and repackaged him as a heel.
Right. Well, what I was saying is that they didn't mention an injury angle in the video.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So there's no, so if there was one, I don't know about. That's not what was mentioned in the video. So anyway, but.
Oh, that's fine. I was asking myself because like I said, the only time I really watched WWE is when The Rock came or Stone Cold came on.
Right.
Because I was more into the Stone Cold storyline and not so much worrying about what The Rock was doing, because he was insignificant to me. I didn't care for The Rock when he first came in. I didn't start caring for The Rock until he turned heel. So.
No, I'm here. I was just letting you guys talk. It's like, right, I remember
that. When you hear dead space, that means we're done talking.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I remember that he was off TV and they had said he had torn his shoulders. Then when he came back, they said, oh, he's been injured. And then he interfered in the match with Farouk. It didn't say who the other guy was, but it was just, he looked like he was trying to help the referee, and then he turned around and gave the opponent the rock bottom, and then everybody just was in shock because he had turned heel and they didn't get it. And then the next time we saw him, he did all I hear is die Rocky, dying Rocky sucks.
That's the promo that Johnny was talking about. That's the promo that Johnny was talking about.
It's one of the best promos I've ever heard him or anyone else cut. I mean, he did a fabulous job. You could tell he was just pissed off that he was tired of the fans shitting on him.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
How you doing, TSS?
Hey, TSS, how's it going, man?
Trek Pizza Bride.
But I call it the Die Rocky Die promo. I mean, that's the easiest way to call it. You can look it up on the network and YouTube. I mean, it's pure heel turn right there. And he was just pissed off. And looking back at it now, it's like, I agree with it. I feel if people told me I sucked, I'd be pissed off too. You're busting your ass for people and they're telling you suck. You're going to lash out too.
The Trekster, you suck.
Not as much as you.
Oh, really?
No,
okay.
I'm teasing.
Anyway, go ahead.
And if you back away from it, right? Dude, you do not know how to be a heel at all.
Go ahead.
They finally start getting traction in '98. The ratings start growing. The revenue starts growing. We see the full turn of Stone Cold. We see the Attitude Era really heat up and hit an apex too. Mm-hmm. And he breaks out of his. Rock breaks out of this Nation of Domination layer. He fully starts calling himself The Rock. He starts talking like, I remember he said that the talking about himself in third person comes from Deion Sanders, because Deion Sanders would talk about himself like that too, and JR brought it up to him. And he said, talk about yourself like that. And he goes, well, The Rock says this, The Rock says that. That's where it came from. He really hit a new level when he stabbed Farouk in the back and threw him out of the Nation along with everybody else. And I remember that night where Farouk said, "You don't get to be a man without getting a good ass whipping," and then he turned around and did what would now be known as the people's eyebrow, and then everybody just jumped him, and he was the Nation of Domination, and he was rolling.
Okay, now this is the thing. We're gonna fill in the holes here. Okay.
Oh shit! I don't know what the fuck. Trek, you're killing me. Go ahead, though.
So, the reason why the turn on the Nation of Domination happened is that during his time with the Nation of Domination, The Rock's ability and his popularity with the fans started to rise, and he developed this arrogance that we know The Rock to have today. Mm-hmm. Hey, it was part of his persona, to where even at one point they show where he gives Farouk a picture of himself, very arrogant, and so they decided to give him. This was very much a step process. They gave him a little bit, and when he conquered that, they gave him a little bit more. So he didn't kick out everybody in the Nation Domination. No. He just kicked out Farouk.
That's what I mean.
So he turns on Farouk, and this is essentially, we're going to give you the leadership, which also leads into a really good rivalry between DX and the Nation of Domination. And this is where the Triple H and The Rock rivalry really kind of kicks off.
Yep.
Right, that's what I was trying to say. I was just trying to say that he gave the people's eyebrow and the Nation turned on Farouk. I said it kind of weird because I've been kind of tired today, so I do apologize.
You said The Rock turned on everybody. I'm like, what the fuck?
Oh, I meant to say The Rock turned around, gave the people's eyebrow, and the Nation jumped Farouk and kicked him out of the Nation, whereas The Rock became the new leader. And I think he actually calls himself the ruler of the Nation of Domination.
So Vince Russo, and I want to make this point, Vince Russo said, and he said this in his fucking book, Vince Russo did.
Yep.
Where he said that he is the one that confronted The Rock and said he should just be called The Rock. Bruce Pritchard said that is bullshit. Do you want to know who The Rock's gimmick was? Who it was?
The Rock.
I'm asking that question. Does anybody know?
No.
It wasn't Vince McMahon. It wasn't Bruce Pritchard. It wasn't Vince Russo.
Sure as fuck
it
was
wasn't
not.
Jim Cornette. And it definitely wasn't fucking Eric Bischoff. It was The Rock himself came up with this whole gimmick on his own. He pitched it to Vince McMahon and he said, do it. That just goes to show you the kind of person that The Rock is and the kind of charisma that he had. He could pull it off.
Oh, yeah.
You don't see stars doing that today. They're afraid to confront Vince with shit. Which is what Drew McIntyre is always talking about when he cuts those promos and shit. That right there, my friends, the promos that Drew McIntyre cuts are not works.
They're shoots.
They're shoots.
Because he even tweets out about the complacency within the locker room.
So, I just wanted to make that point, sorry.
Oh, no, I appreciate it. Thank you for bringing that up.
No problem.
But yeah, it's just, this is around the same time WWE began relying on new, younger stars. And The Rock was able to definitely step up with that character. April 98, we get to the point where Raw finally gets a ratings. They finally win the ratings battle after 83 or 84 weeks in a row. They've said 83 and 84 weeks in a row, so I've heard both. So 83 weeks in a row of getting their ass kicked by Nitro, Raw finally steps up and wins.
It's the 84th week Raw wins the ratings.
Right.
WCW won the ratings for 83 weeks in a row, and then on the 84th week, WWE won.
Exactly.
So there's your answer.
Thank you. We finally get to the big rivalry we've been talking about the whole show, which is DX versus the Nation. And I remember it was just egged on. It was just like, you felt like there was a sense of I don't know if you called hatred between these groups, but they wanted to kick the crap out of each other. And one of my favorite promos that they... Go ahead.
Trek. What factions?
Initiative, Domination, and DX.
Okay. I didn't hear him say the two factions.
Yeah.
Okay, go on.
Sorry. And I think my favorite promo that really describes it well was where DX comes out as the Nation. And Triple H is The Rock. I'm like, you could tell that's when they were like pushing the envelope, and that's what they kept getting higher and higher and higher because it was just pure fun and it was just pure entertainment. And I remember Triple H was dressed up as The Rock, X-Pac was dressed up as Mizark, Mark Henry, and then he had blackface. I'm like, that would never happen today. There's so much PC stuff online. You would never get away with that today because people would start bitching and moaning and screaming for a boycott and everything like that and all that garbage. It was just so good that it led into these matches that just gelled so well. Like, we were watching King of the Ring, what was it, 98 a couple weeks ago? And it was the part where The Rock was trash talking Triple H and Triple H spit the water in his face. I'm like, it didn't seem like it was scripted. It seemed like it flowed, it gelled so well. I think these guys had such great matches, especially at SummerSlam 98, that it just flowed so well. You don't get that today. It's like these guys had a natural animosity towards each other.
I wouldn't know. They had great chemistry. Mm-hmm. They didn't have animosity. The Rock and Triple H are really good friends.
They are.
Oh, yeah.
They're best friends, just like...
I'm sorry.
Just like with Razor Ramon, Kevin Nash, and all of them, they're still very close friends. The Rock and Triple H are still very close.
They had really good chemistry.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what you're talking about. They didn't have animosity.
Right, that's what I meant.
Like
they just had...
They were both so fucking good at it.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is why he's so good in movies.
But I can't...
Bobbitt, are you there?
No, he stepped away for a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry. I felt so bad. I was going to ask him what he thought, and I didn't want to interrupt him or talk over him.
Okay, whatever. Moving on.
But it was just my favorite match. The one I knew where it really hit its apex was that ladder match at SummerSlam 98, which we have to watch one of these days. Maybe we could do like a commentary or something like that. Because it's just, you didn't need high-flying moments. You didn't need to hit the crap out of each other with the ladder. They did that. But you didn't need to work on with high-flying moments like the Hardys and Edge and Christian and those guys were doing.
Right.
It was just a good wrestling match.
Slow down.
Sorry.
You're not on a time limit. Breathe and go easy.
Slow down. I'm asking you I've been trying to ask you a fucking question for like 10 minutes now. And you just keep rambling on. So anyway, SummerSlam 1998. Who was in the match? You didn't even talk about who was in the match. We went from one point to another. Who are we talking about here?
It was SummerSlam 98, The Rock and Triple H in the ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship.
Okay. What about it?
And it was a great match, and it was a ladder match, which nowadays everyone expects people to be like a crash-up derby.
Okay.
Like, you expect all these high spots and stuff. You expect high flying, like what Jeff Hardy and Edge did in their matches and stuff. But it was just more of a wrestling match. They did use the ladder. They did use chairs and stuff like that. But it was more of really just trying to wrestle each other so you could get to the top of the ladder. But they weren't doing these tremendous high spots.
Trent, what is your question?
Do you think that's the apex of their rivalry at that time?
No, not even fucking close. Their apex was in the fucking Ruthless Aggression era. Because didn't they have more? They had. Think about the matches that they had in the Ruthless Aggression era when they were fighting over the title. They didn't fight over the title in the Attitude Era. They were fighting over the title a little bit in the Ruthless Aggression. In fact, more so in the Ruthless Aggression era than anything.
You got to remember, a lot of these guys that were around in the Attitude Era were also around during the time of the Ruthless Aggression era.
Yeah.
So they had a long career.
Yeah, and Triple H, he didn't really get a title run until after the Attitude Era was over. I mean, it was at the end of the Attitude Era. I do know that at the end of the Attitude Era, that's when the rivalry really took off, because then they were fighting over the fucking title, the main title at that time. Stone Cold was going through his injury thing, so him and Triple H, The Rock, had to take over the reins, and they did a very good job of it. And Stone Cold even said that at the end of his Triple H and The Rock took the reins and ran with it.
Yep.
So, yeah.
How you doing, Merch?
What's up, Merch?
Hi, Marge. So let me rephrase it.
Okay.
Were there a series of matches at that time
Okay.
when they were fighting over the Intercontinental Championship and they were doing Nation versus DX? Do you think that was their best match for the Intercontinental Championship at the time?
For the Intercontinental title, because you got to remember, again, once towards the end of the Attitude Era, they were fighting over the main title. So I would say no. Their apex was when they were fighting over the title at the end. If you're gonna ask that question, the Nation of Domination and DX feud was one of the great faction feuds in WWE. Just with the DX telling the humor side of it, and Nation of Domination being pissed off all the fucking time, it was funny. To me, it was funny watching the Nation of Domination. That Survivor Series, man. Didn't they do a Survivor Series match?
I think so.
I think they did a Survivor Series match at that time, and they were doing it was one of the great feuds. It was a great feud. But I would say that Triple H and The Rock made that feud between DX and Nation of Domination. I would have to say that maybe X-Pac and Road Dogg and Billy Gunn helped make that feud what it was.
I want one. I just now realized what you had.
So yeah, I mean, I would have to say no, Trek. I just, again, their better feuds were when they were feuding over the title, the WWE title.
Right. No, that's a good point. Bobbitt, what did you think of the Nation of Domination and DX feud? I know you weren't watching WWE a lot back then, but what did you think of what you saw?
Yeah, it was good. It was funny. I saw when they came out and mocked Nation Domination. That was pretty funny. Yeah. By the way, fuck the Steelers, fuck this game, and fuck the refs.
Okay, moving on.
The great matches between Triple H and The Rock and all the good programming that WWE was doing really pushed WCW to combat them. And WCW wasn't just going to lay down and say we're dead. They actually fought back with Hogan versus Goldberg at the Georgia Dome in that infamous match, which was a great match, but they kind of dropped the ball too.
They bit them in the ass and gave away something for free.
Exactly. That was a guaranteed pay-per-view match if I've ever seen one. I remember watching it at that time, like, this is so good, but why aren't we paying for it? How did we get this for free? And then to see that it got announced a week ahead, and it feels to me just like that they announced it a week ahead just so they could try and get a jump on WWE.
Well, you want to know why they did that?
That was 2 weeks ago. What happened with WWE?
I know, but I said this 2 weeks ago. You said, why did that happen? It happened because what did we say about the fucking Monday Night Wars? What was it more about? It was about the TV ratings. If you're paying attention to the Monday Night Wars, they're talking about TV ratings. When do they talk about a fucking pay-per-view in this? They don't.
Because, let's be honest, WWE's pay-per-views were not that great back then either.
Nope. Pay-per-views weren't what brought money in. It was the Monday Night Wars. The two shows that they had. That's what was bringing the money in.
Right, exactly. I find it interesting also that on the episode of the Monday Night War, the war gets electrified, that the man who was one of the most impressed with The Rock is Eric Bischoff himself.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy worked for the competition. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I'm just going to say, you want to know why? Who wouldn't want to have The Rock on their fucking roster?
Exactly.
Go ahead.
But it just amazes me that he was for the other company, the competition, and they never mentioned WCW, but boy, was Eric Bischoff impressed with The Rock. I mean, you get the sense that he wanted The Rock really bad. Like, he would have tried to make him bigger than Goldberg. I mean, it just shocks me that Bischoff was so impressed that he said he had more charisma with his little finger than the rest of the roster did, I think. He said something like that.
You make that sound like Bischoff didn't know what the fuck he was talking about.
No, but I mean, just like that Bischoff was so obsessed with WCW winning that he was so impressed with the WWE guy. Amazes me sometimes.
Okay, so since we got off on the WCW thing, I'm going to bring it back to what was going on during the WWE. So, in response to the Goldberg winning the title, they made The Rock the corporate champion.
Mm-hmm.
Champion, which was their answer. And this was sort of the pinnacle of The Rock's heel run.
Mm-hmm.
And for the Attitude Era. And it leads to arguably the only time that this segment has ever worked in a WWE ring, which was the "This Is Your Life."
Oh yeah, the Mankind fucking the Mankind Rock segment. Got it. Go on, I'm listening. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. We get to Survivor Series 98, and The Rock is just, he's outgrown the nation. He's on his own. He's supposed to be a heel, but the people were fucking cheering him. They're cheering him as much as they are with Stone Cold Steve Austin. And just, when I was growing up watching this, I was so shocked that you had two big babyfaces just, instead of just one. I mean, it happened before with Ultimate Warrior and Hogan. But you didn't see that a whole lot. You didn't see, like, one guy they liked as much as the other was. Like, who do you like more? Because I had friends who liked The Rock, and I was a big Austin fan, but I respected The Rock.
Mm-hmm.
So they get to Survivor Series 98, and he's supposedly getting pushed back down by Vince. He's like, I believe he even said he couldn't be in the tournament. He was throwing all these roadblocks in front of him until he finally entered the tournament. And we watched that the other night, and I think it's one of the best tournaments they've ever done.
Okay.
I mean, you had said it during the tournament that you could see that The Rock was going to turn on the fans and go with Vince. I mean, but I was... it might just be me, but go ahead.
You're talking about the pay-per-view that we watched the other night.
Right, Survivor Series 98.
I seen it coming from a fucking mile away. Anybody that didn't see that coming from a mile away, and you guys were young back then, except for you, Trek, you were probably, what, in your teens? Yes? No?
I think I was about 19.
Okay. I was privy to what was going on. Anybody that didn't see what they were doing, or didn't pay attention to what they were doing, I don't know what to say. I knew they weren't going to put the title on Mankind. Mankind wasn't their guy at the time. Mankind was Daniel Bryan before Daniel Bryan was Daniel Bryan.
Exactly.
The Rock was going to be the guy. And you could see it coming. It was either going to be Stone Cold or The Rock. And when Stone Cold got beat, you knew it was going to be The Rock. Because they were going to... WrestleMania. They were going to build right to WrestleMania. And we got WrestleMania 15. One of the great matches in WrestleMania history.
Right.
Rock versus Stone Cold. Which, their feud, the two most popular superstars, and arguably two of the most popular superstars to ever step in the ring in a WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm.
And that Survivor Series, that when they crowned The Rock the corporate champion, I was kind of shocked. I could sense that something was going to happen, but I didn't know exactly what. And then it set up this feud nicely between Foley and Rock, because he was just supposed to be kind of the stepping stone to help Rock get to Austin.
Mm-hmm.
But it took on a life of its own. That feud just went, I don't know, I'd say electric. That feud just took on a life of its own and just blew up.
Are you talking about the Rock Stone Cold feud?
No, The Rock Mankind.
Okay.
That took on a life of its own. I mean, you see, it all led up to that night on Raw when Bischoff spoiled the surprise of Mankind winning the title, and all those people tuned in to Raw to see what was going on.
You're missing the major point of what that segment did, though. The major point of that is that that's what turned The Rock face. He was doing his heel gimmick, and people wouldn't stop cheering him. And subsequently, it was after that you had him turn on Vince McMahon and become, because at this time Stone Cold was out of the picture. So, you also at this time is when The Rock took the reins and became the new anti-hero.
Right. Yeah.
I still remember. Oh, go ahead.
I was just agreeing with what Johnny said. Go on.
Right, but I still remember stuff like the empty arena match that they had, which usually those matches have a tendency to be really boring because you can't feed off the crowd.
That match was considered one of the worst matches in WWE history. What are you talking about? How did you like it?
They made it fun, though.
They made it fun. There was nothing to that match. Did you see the way that match ended, Trexter?
Right, with him putting a forklift.
Yeah, come on now.
But it was the way that they told it, like that.
That one with the empty ring?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, that was a horrible match.
That was terrible.
But the way they did it was fun. Like when The Rock's backstage with Mankind.
Terrible match, Trexter. What was fun about it?
Like the way that The Rock was beating up on Mankind, and he would like answer the phone and like beat up Mankind with the phone and stuff like that. They made it fun when it was a hard match to do.
Okay, that's your opinion.
Yeah.
It was terrible. That match was fucking god awful. Anyway, go ahead.
Bobbitt, what did you think of the Foley Rock rivalry?
I'm watching the Carolina game.
What did you think of the Rock fucking Foley rivalry?
Oh, it was good. I mean, nothing special. He was more memorable for his Rock with his feud with Stone Cold more than he was Mankind.
Yeah. Well, he was Mankind pretty much throughout the whole feud. You guys are confusing the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And fuck the Steelers.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. God damn.
What's
So
next?
we finally get to the Foley Rock thing, and it was supposed to get him over, and then it finally those two trading the title back and forth. I think did put on a good show. I mean, it was a fun match, especially the Royal Rumble match, which is a good match, but it's extremely hard to watch.
The Royal Rumble match. Okay, so what was the Royal Rumble match? Didn't like 3 of their matches, weren't they stipulation matches?
Yeah, all 3 of them were like.
Okay, which one was the Royal Rumble match?
That was the I Quit one where he kept getting smashed in the head with the chair.
That's the one where he recorded fucking Foley saying I quit, yeah. Right? Okay. Yeah, that match was bullshit too. You have to remember the way that was all it was. It's kind of what. God, how do I explain this without sounding condescending? Mankind and The Rock, they tried way too hard with that feud.
Yes.
In my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were trying to get The Rock to turn face. But he was already there. He was that same fucking... Again, we talked about this at the beginning. He was the same fucking guy. He did not change. And Johnny said it. The thing that fucking made The Rock and Mankind, their feud, become the Rock and Sock connection, which is what they were trying to do in the beginning, was the "this is your life" thing.
Right.
Mankind was not... Even when him and Stone Cold were having feuds, Mankind, or Dude Love, didn't hate Stone Cold. He was just doing what Vince told him to do.
Exactly.
And The Rock was part of the corporation, so at the time he was a heel. Then when the corporation, once The Rock's eyes got opened and seen what the fucking corporation was doing to Mankind, that's when The Rock turned on fucking Vince. So that's where I think that's where you were going with this, but I don't know.
No, that's pretty much where I'm going.
Okay, we'll get there.
So we get to WrestleMania 15, like you guys said, Austin and Rock had this, one of the best matches, and it wasn't a great pay-per-view. It was decent. It was an okay pay-per-view. But Rock and Austin, their match is what you remember most for WrestleMania 15.
It was one of the great matches of WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm.
And the way they built it up and built it up and built it up, it was just amazing. Especially stuff like the beer truck, when Austin came out and sprayed everyone with the beer truck. Nobody had ever seen them do that stuff before.
Yeah. No. I don't know where you're going with this.
It just,
Where you going?
all the stuff was the perfect storm to make this stuff the perfect rivalry. You wanted to see both these guys collide, but they kept them apart so much. You were chomping at the bit to when they finally got together to see them just tear each other apart.
I'm going to disagree with you on this, and I'll tell you why. You didn't really need to do anything to build this feud.
No.
All you had to do was say The Rock and Stone Cold at WrestleMania 15, and tickets were bought already.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, you didn't need to build. And the Stone Cold, everybody gives Stone Cold bullshit, garbage. He only had 5 fucking moves. Again, we've said this before. He was when he was the ringmaster, he had a move set. I mean, he had tons of moves. They wouldn't have called him a ringmaster if he couldn't work inside the ring.
Right.
It was his character is what they wanted him to just... That's why The Rock and fucking Stone Cold had really good matches, because The Rock could work, or Stone Cold could work with anybody. And it was just the hype of the superstars themselves is what made it that much more better.
Right.
Dead air.
Exactly. The feud built itself and built and built and built to you wanted. They didn't even have to do anything, but it's just like that they built it so much that, like you said, all you had to say was Austin versus Rock, and people would just like flood the building.
Well, all you had to do was just put them in the ring, and they would have torn their house down even without the advertisement.
Exactly. Now I remember that time too. I remember back at that time too when everybody was just that. They said WrestleMania 15 was cool, but that's the match they wanted to see. They wanted to see Austin and Rock. They didn't. They wanted to see who was the best. They wanted to see them beat each other up. And I love the parts in that match, like where The Rock has Stone Cold on the announce table and he's filming him with the camera. He flips on the bird.
No, I don't. What did he ask?
What was that, track?
You got to slow down when you're talking, man.
Sorry. I love the part. I love the match as a whole because it flowed so well. And one of my favorite parts of the match was when The Rock had Stone Cold outside, dead to rights on the announce table, and he gets the cameraman's camera. He's filming himself. He's filming Austin laying down on the table. He flips on the bird.
Okay. What about it?
It's just like you had never seen that before. It's just like they pulled it off so well, and then the next thing you see is Austin gets up and flips him off and stuns him.
Okay.
And Ronnie, just to correct you slightly with that, yes, they had more input in their characters, but that's because they actually took the initiative to have more input in their characters.
I actually stated that with the Drew McIntyre thing.
Yeah.
And wasn't Austin and Rock towards the end of the Attitude Era, towards the end of the Monday Night War anyway?
Mm-hmm.
They feuded for like 3 years straight, dude.
Yeah. On again, off again.
No. What I was asking, wasn't the start of their feud towards the end of the Monday Night War?
No, because towards the end of the Monday Night War, Stone Cold Steve Austin was starting to get towards the end of his career.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's
90,
right.
WrestleMania 15 was their first match.
Right.
But they had matches before that. Remember the Rock was the Intercontinental Champion, and Stone Cold took the Intercontinental title. And
That's right. Yes, I remember that now. Yeah.
That's when Stone Cold gave up the Intercontinental title and said, "I'm putting my name in the Royal Rumble," and fucking didn't he relinquish the title? He didn't lose it. He relinquished it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so.
And then he said, I'm entering the Royal Rumble. I have more fish to catch, or bigger fish to catch, or something like that. So he threw his name in the hat for the Royal Rumble. He won the Royal Rumble, beat Shawn Michaels, and then it went from there.
Right.
He acted like he was giving up the Intercontinental Championship to The Rock because Vince was going to make him put it up in the rematch the night after DX in your house.
Mm-hmm.
And then because he used the pickup truck as a weapon and he beat up the nation and he did all this stuff, and Vince said, "Oh, that's not fair," which was when they really started becoming the heel with Mr. McMahon towards Steve Austin.
Right.
And then he gave him the belt, and The Rock yanked it away from him. He just raised his arm, and then he turned on The Rock and stunned him, and then grabbed the belt back. And then the next week on Raw, that's when he threw the belt in the river.
Mm-hmm. That is correct.
But yeah, it's funny because their rivalry, Rock and Austin, helped lead Raw. It was the big part of Raw that helped them get to a 5-month ratings victory, and they never looked back after that. They were just cooking. They were on the path to victory ever since.
By that time, you got to remember though, WCW kind of killed themselves. They were trying to do too much at one time. To be honest,
and they were focusing on NWO too much too.
That's at about this time. The NWO had the two factions, and there was just people in the NWO. So, essentially, to end it, we're getting close to the end, right, Trek?
Yeah.
So I'll pose this last question to everybody. How much of an impact do you think The Rock had on the Attitude Era, or the Monday Night Wars in general?
I want to say it was a pretty big impact because he was something fresh and young that excited the people again once he had the character change.
Right.
What about you, Johnny?
I think I can agree with that. I think towards the end, he had a much bigger impact than he did in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't necessarily put him up there with some of the others as far as the magnitude of the impact. He had a big impact, but I think there were a few others that had a much larger impact on the Monday Night War. But I'm not taking away from anything The Rock did. He certainly did have an impact, but I think there was a few that you could realistically make the argument for that had a little bit bigger of an impact.
I can agree with that. I can agree with that totally. What about you, Bobbitt? How much of an impact do you think The Rock had on the Monday Night Wars in general? Do you think he is the reason, or do you even think he had an impact on WWE beating WCW?
No, he had an impact, but it wasn't as big as, let's say the Stone Cold or Shawn Michaels or, anything like. WCW never got a got a version of The Rock. And The Rock was one of many reasons why the WWF won. And he wasn't like the sole reason, but he was one of the major reasons.
Okay.
And that makes sense.
And actually, Bobbitt, I could disagree with you on that because, in a way, WCW did have its own version of The Rock, and that was Chris Jericho.
Yes.
Yeah, well, now looking behind, like she said, hindsight is 20/20. Yes, because he's one of the great promo cutters. So if WCW would have fucking opened their fucking eyes and seen that he was worth it,
and took him out of the cruiserweight division and actually let him be
Chris Jericho,
yeah,
I could have been a different story. Chris Jericho again. What? Like I mean, what can we say about Chris Jericho?
Yeah. Well, we said a lot last week.
Yeah. Trexter?
I would say he was a big reason. Was he the main reason? No, I think the main reason was Austin. But I think The Rock was very close, especially when Austin did get hurt at the end. He really stepped up and he became the leader, and he was a big reason why they were able to shut WCW down at the end, because he stepped up when Austin's neck kept giving him problems and they didn't know if Austin was going to be able to come back. Also, to your topic of did WCW have a Rock? For me, the WCW Rock was DDP.
I don't know about that.
He was not as charismatic as
No.
Chris Jericho or The Rock was.
He was charismatic, but no. Because you got to think about it. DDP was how old when he was fucking...
He started wrestling.
35.
Yeah, then he
32,
really...
they're somewhere between 32 and 35.
Yeah, and his character really didn't take off until towards the end of the Monday Night Wars.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you could almost do a story, because his story on how he got into wrestling is amazing to begin with.
He was nothing but a valet, and they said, hey, do you want to do... Maybe we'll do an episode where we talk about DDP. But
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah. I was just going to suggest that. I think that's a really good idea. That could take up a good chunk of time, too.
Well, let's get through this series of what we're going to do, and then we have other ideas for other series, and we'll see where we go from here. But, yes. Trexter, anything else you want to add?
I think the only other thing I could add is he's pretty much the biggest star to transcend from wrestling to movies, because we had Roddy Piper, we had Hulk Hogan, we had Stone Cold, we had Randy Savage a little bit, we had Andre the Giant. But I think The Rock really took that Hollywood role and ran with it. I mean, he's a movie star now. A couple years ago, he had 3 or 4 massive number one hits in a row. I mean, no other wrestler could say they've done that.
I don't give a fuck about The Rock as an actor. Anyway.
But I just mean that he's transcended it. I mean, for crying out loud, he's the reason why we have SmackDown, because he gave that show its title.
Exactly.
But that has nothing to do with the Monday Night War.
No, but he brought that word into the public lexicon, though. I mean, that's why it's in the dictionary, because he said, I'm going to lay the SmackDown, and that was that was one of his big catchphrases, if not the big catchphrase. Because I remember back when I first started working at the theater, we used to say that to each other all the time. I mean,
again, though, what does that have to do with the Monday Night War? It has nothing to do with the Monday Night War. It has precursors to after that.
I was just going to say that his movie career didn't kick off until way after the Monday Night Wars.
It was when...
I don't give a shit about The Rock as an actor. He's not entertaining to me.
Oh no, I just mean that he's done something no other wrestler has done. He's transcended, is all I mean. But also the fact that if he hadn't come up with this phrase "laying the SmackDown," if we'd still gotten SmackDown, I don't know what they would have called it, because they could. I guess Bruce Pritchard said they could call it the main events and stuff. But
Trexter, what does that have to do with the Monday Night Wars?
I mean, if you were talking about WCW Thunder, that'd be something different, because that was actually something they tried to start during the Monday Night Wars.
SmackDown was not on Monday nights. It was on Fridays and Thursdays. Remember?
No, I know, but they talked about it in the episode too, as saying that they were so successful they expanded to a second show.
I understand that. So his catchphrases is what you're talking about.
Right.
Okay, well then say that. Don't talk about fucking SmackDown the show because it wasn't on fucking Monday night!
And Jim heard you across the street.
That's all I'm saying, man.
No. It's hard to explain sometimes.
I get it.
But I think that, like we said, The Rock is a major part of why they won the Monday Night Wars. I think Austin is the major part, but I think The Rock definitely was, like, pretty close to that, too.
Mm-hmm. That's fine. I mean, I all your points are valid. I can't sit here and disagree with any of them. I mean, The Rock is one of the major reasons. When you say Attitude Era, you think of The Rock. So
Yeah.
he's one of those guys. I think Stone Cold rocked mankind.
Mm-hmm.
Same here.
I don't even think of The Undertaker right off the top of my head. The top 3 guys right then and there are Rock, Stone Cold, Mankind.
So, Trek, you want to take us out, or do you want me to?
You, Trek?
I would say let's let everyone throw out their channels and their Twitter stuff, and you could go first, Johnny.
Well, you can follow me on Twitter at Johnny Sinister, and I'm here on the Cold Bone Show.
Well, then you also thought of starting something else back up. If you want to shout that out now, Johnny.
Your gaming shit.
Oh, yeah. September 15th, I will be returning to my own channel, and we will be doing gaming videos. I think I finally nailed down what I want to do on the channel. So we're just going to be doing gameplay videos. There's not going to be a podcast. Well, there might be a podcast or something later on down the line, but we're not going to be doing a podcast right now. We're just doing the gameplay videos. So September 15th is when we will be returning to I will be returning to my own channel.
Not to scare
That's
anybody,
right.
he's still going to be working with us. He's still going to be here on the Cold Bone Show on Monday.
Right, I'm not going anywhere. I've got my schedule down to a point now where I can afford to expand into my own channel again.
Right. And I'm sorry if I killed you people. Apparently D Wells died. Because he said I am death.
Breathe, D-Wells.
I am death. Just go back and watch it, Ryan.
It'll be DVR'd in about 15 minutes.
You know
that's why I was trying to hint to Johnny to say, well, let's talk about his channel. I didn't want to say, go do this and stuff. I was like, do you have any announcements to make? And you did talk about that a little bit the other night, but I wanted to make sure you got time to talk about it.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to...
Shut the fuck up, Trexter. Shit.
I'm going to take us out. JP and Heather, tweet out, where can people find you?
Right here.
The Cold Bone Show for him, and with me, the Tattoo Mistress channel, which is coming up with the return of Raging Ink tonight, folks.
And you can find me on Twitter at JPBaker91. Same for Snapchat and Instagram.
Bobbitt, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Foulmouth Mike, and on my own channel at Foulmouth Bobbitt, and that is it.
Track in one sentence, where can people find you?
On Twitter, Brendan Casholi. On Facebook, on YouTube as Trekapedia. And I'm always having fun with you guys on here.
Well, holy fucking shit.
So, with that being said, guys, please be sure to tune in next week to Wrestling Memories, episode 32, where I will be once again hosting the show for you, lovely ladies and gentlemen. Please stay tuned. Heather's going to jump over for the re-debut of Raging Ink over on the Tattoo Mistress channel. So head over there. Be sure, as always, to like, share, subscribe. Hit that bell icon because that's the only way YouTube will let you know that we're on. And with that being said, guys, thank you as always for coming out. We greatly appreciate it. Much love to everybody. You guys have a good night.
And don't forget, we're going to be talking more wrestling on Heather's show, so pop over there if you guys want to talk. It's going to be an interesting discussion.